Good evening, and welcome to the Protective Services Committee budget meeting. Today, October 10th, 2024. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Legislator Sage, can you read us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Legislator Agnasio.
Present.
Legislator Sage.
Present.
Chairwoman Nassarino.
Present. Okay, we're going to change up the order somewhat, but we will begin with judicial expense on page 3. This is not for you guys. Mike Lewis.
Hello again.
Hello.
Hello.
So we have here the budget for the courthouse expenses.
Correct.
And this is reimbursable for the most part, is that correct?
Yeah, we just, this is a new 5-year agreement that we have through their state fiscal year through 2028. As a county or a city that has a courthouse, we're mandated to maintain it and do minor repairs and stuff. But as we all learned, that it's only minor repairs, it's not major repairs, so they won't reimburse. So that would be on us. But this is just a 5-year agreement. We're estimating $275,000. It could be more, it could be less, just based on the activity. And this is also encompasses the courthouse, which is the new, which is now old, but the historical courthouse, part of records management, and part of the county clerk.
Okay. Any questions from the committee?
Yes. I just have a question. I seems like I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, didn't janitorial services go up quite a bit this year for the courthouse? I can't remember.
Well, this would, this would have been, I can defer to Commissioner Peary.
So it looks like right now the actual through October is 4,000, and we budgeted 4,000. Seems like it'll be another 3 months. At the end of
janitorial supplies or janitorial
Oh, I'm sorry.
services?
I'm looking at janitorial supplies.
Well, that actual could be actual plus encumbrances to get you to the 4,000.
With the bottom one.
Okay, and then, yes, and then janitorial services too, on the bottom. So it did go up.
Services went up 20 grand.
Oh, I see.
Up 25%.
Okay, sorry, I was looking at janitorial
20 grand.
supplies.
Any other questions from any of the legislators? Any questions from the audience? Okay. Moving right along, I'm going to change the order, and I do have a request tonight for the district attorney to come forward. I have a special request.
Oh, okay.
So that will be on page 4 through 7. Pages 4 through 7. If you want to glance it as well.
Go ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, beginning with page 4, we have the asset forfeiture budget. Any questions or comments before we go on to the general? I just have a question of 52110, which is furniture, and for $8,000.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us what?
Mm-hmm. That is because right now we had an office with 2 part-timers sharing an office, and with the recent approval of hiring a full-time appeals attorney, they're going to need their own office, so we will have to get some furniture for them.
Okay, thank you. And the computer equipment, the $2,500, which is a new expenditure?
Again, to
For the new attorney?
Yes.
Okay. right, any other questions about page 4? Okay, moving on to page 5 is general fund. Okay, so we see the budget went up slightly, and we are very cognizant that costs have gone up throughout this budget. We recognize that, but just for full disclosure and for clarity, there's some questions that we're going to go through. So the temporary line went up from 10,000 to 20,000. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yes, we are short-staffed on support staff. We have 2 out on medical leave, so in order for us to continue to get our work done to meet our legal obligations, we have hired a temp, so that's what that line is for.
And so in addition to encumbering $8,000, we have another $5,000 request for furniture and furnishings.
Yes, that's to replace broken furniture that we've been slowly doing. Every year we try and replace something that's broken.
Okay, special services judicial, $10,000, which is a new expenditure.
That is a new expenditure because we are now required to pay for minutes for certain hearings. Do you want to explain?
I can explain a little bit further. A specific instance that we've run into is during our DWI prosecutions. There's what's called a DMV refusal hearing. It's an administrative hearing that's conducted by the DMV. However, the officers have to go and give testimony at that hearing, so that is covered by the new discovery statute. We are obligated to get those recordings and have them transcribed and provide them to our defense attorneys as part of discovery. A lot of transcription services, I don't know if there's any, we're actually trying to work out how if the DMV has a transcription service that they use, or if we have to find our own, but they're going to charge us. And again, this is part of our discovery obligations. So it's required in every case where these hearings are conducted. So we're trying to preemptively address that by this request.
And that's why we put it in a separate line so we can keep track of it.
That's great, thanks, okay. Okay, so, might have to defer to Mr. Tully for this one, but I'm going to keep asking the same question throughout this budget, just for clarity, and if we understand, vehicles and rental is $18,600. I'm going to defer to John Tully for that, so we can distinguish what it is.
That's correct. That's
So
accurate.
is this for the leases that are we now have in place?
That's correct. It's for the
Okay.
existing vehicles.
Okay. Thank you. Legislator Elmer.
Through the chair, how many?
2.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, the stenographer services has gone up $5,000 from last year.
Yes.
We
We're using her a
anticipate
lot more.
I know. We realize that, but we need to just go through this to have an open and transparent process so everybody's clear on what these are, and when budget is posted and our video and minutes are posted, people understand. And special services has now jumped to $100,000.
We have a murder trial on the horizon, and we have...
There's actually 2 cases that we're currently aware of. We don't know what else is going to come in. One is a homicide trial that, or homicide case that is likely going to go to trial. Another one is an appeal that we recently received where there is a likelihood that that individual will be granted a new trial. That's also a homicide case.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the committee? Any questions from any legislators? Okay. Moving on to page 6 is the Justice Discovery Reform. That is it. Yeah. Justice Discovery Reform on page.
I don't have a... You're looking at a different...
Oh,
That's
I
the
can
book
look
in
at
front of
this.
him.
page 6.
Go all the way to the tab for expenses.
The second section.
That's incoming state aid.
Page 6.
that, Michelle, is that a grant?
The criminal justice discovery.
Oh, yeah, that's
State
the,
aid?
yes, that's the grant.
State aid grant, okay. All right, any other questions? Okay, thank you for coming in. Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Lewis. Moving on to legal aid, page 8. So this is the Indigent Legal Aid Society.
Correct. This is a mandated service, you know, for the welfare provision by the state to people who can't otherwise afford counsel. And we have the distributions from the state. They vary year to year, but this year it's going to be 1.6 million. Their operation is about 2.2 million, and of that, it would be a contribution from the county to subsidize them for $652,000.
Any questions? Any questions from the legislature?
They originally asked for a 5% increase, but in the tentative budget, it was a 3% cost of living adjustment.
Legislator Elmer?
Through the chair, Commissioner Lewis, obviously the expenses have gone up. Do we have we been given a rationale why they're going up so significantly? I mean, more cases, more?
I think it's the cases, I think it's just the
Complexity.
salaries, the fringes, the benefits, you know.
Okay.
We have their, because they are considered an outside agency, we do have all their financial statements and 990s, all that stuff.
So the cost of doing business
Yeah.
has gone up this much.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, that's page.
Page 8.
Okay.
I have a question on page 8.
Oh,
Are you-
yes.
Oh, thank you. I was looking at the forensic exams. Has that been moved?
No, it's
Okay.
actually, I have it here, they wanted to collapse it into the 54,950 line, the county contribution. It's just easier for
Oh,
them
okay.
to streamline.
Okay. Any other questions? From the legislators? Anybody else? Okay. Moving on to page 9, which is appointed legal defense of indigent services. So I believe this is for outside counsel, should there be a conflict or circumstances?
Yeah, these are 18B cases. I think either late 2023 or effective 1/1/24. No, excuse me, I'm sorry, late 2022, I believe. The state changed their fee structure. Originally, it was $75. It was on the county. They raised it from $75 to $158 for family appeal court cases, felonies, criminal appeals. So it still was $75 county, $83 for the state. But then what they would do is they'd reimburse 50% of the state share. So our real cost is $116.50, and theirs is $41.50. So, and then the other one is for misdemeanors, where the county pays $60, the state is $98, but then we get reimbursed 50% of that. So our hourly rate is now $109 for that. So that's why you have the $1 million for the gross appropriations, but then you have the offset of, you know, the revenue that we'll get back.
Okay, that's good. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to number 4. Page 10,
Page 10.
JP and constables.
Yeah. These are, we get quarterly disbursements from the New York State Justice Court Fund. These are the Stop DWI funds. that probably Director Osterhaus will talk about in a few. But what they do is they give us a net distribution, and they keep $10 per incident for any type of criminal actions or any vehicular or misdemeanors under that law. So it's just a fee that they just take off the top.
$4,000.
It's approximate, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
That's it.
Okay, moving on to number 5, we changed the order. And we will be looking at the coroners. Dr. Mike. And that is page 11 and 12.
Back.
Hello. This looks pretty level to me. I don't have any questions whether or not colleagues do. Straightforward.
We have I think a very favorable budget. As you know, every year our expenses have been decreasing for 2 major reasons. Number one, we now directly negotiate a contract with the pathologists. We don't use an outside agency anymore, and that saves us about $1,000 a case that we've been doing. And the second thing, because of our continued medical education and servicing, we can now determine the cause of death and the manner of death much quicker using medical records, consulting with a lot of our health partners, doctors, and we're able to make that determination without doing a post-mortem on every death. So with that said, we went from years ago doing 90 cases a year down to 80, and I believe we're now up in the high 50s, low 60s, and that's a big savings in our contract budgeting. So you'll see 2 increases here that are minimal. One is in postage. We had to move money last year from contracts into postage because we are now mandated to send all of our correspondence through FedEx and no more the general mail, so that bumped up our numbers by, I think, $500 or $700. And the second small increase was in personnel. And the rest has been flat since. So.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Yes, Dr. Malik, yes, your overall budget has decreased. The one thing that is kind of popping out to me is 54646 contracts, where the revised budget of last year equals the tentative of 117,250, but year to date, October, year to date, only spent 48,000. Can you just tell us what these contracts are?
Yeah, a lot of the contract it involves 2 things. Number one, contracts is for the funeral homes and the removal of the decedents from the location. The second one is from our lab that we use exclusively. There's been a little bump up in the numbers to run all the toxicology screens, but as I said, with less amount of autopsies that we're doing, that number has decreased, even though there's a slight increase per toxicology screen that we've been doing.
So it's possible you're never going to get to the 117 that was budgeted for this.
There's
this
a
cycle.
very strong possibility, but it's very unpredictable because we can't predict what's going to happen in the future. And there's always a savings. Like I said, we went from 90 down to 80 down to, I think we're year to date we've gotten up to 46 cases as of today, and we projected that we'll probably hit just a little shy of 60 cases for 2024, and we're very fortunate in that regard. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Legislator Montgomery.
Thank you. I know last year we had a discussion about Putnam Hospital and the morgue, and
yeah.
and just wondering how that's going, and is that reflected anywhere in this budget?
It doesn't reflect it here. With last year, and we negotiated a very favorable contract with the hospital. They're one of our biggest supporters. We are now the exclusive users of the morgue that they had. They need to keep that morgue to get certification with JCO, and they only did like 1 or 2 cases in the last 3 years. So we've absorbed that as long as we have exclusive use of that morgue. We last year we negotiated a contract where they would revise and give it a new facelift, where we paid, the county paid 50% and the hospital paid 50%, and that worked out really well. The morgue is now refurbished, and they also made the morgue a negative pressure room, because during the pandemic we couldn't do any post-mortems because of that problem, but they resolved it. They took the and then they have taken care of that problem for us. So we've been very fortunate in that regard. We also were paying $400 for a dictation to the hospital. That's been absorbed by Larive, our confidential secretary, by the way. So that $400 per case is absorbed through the department. So we've been very fortunate in that regard.
Good work, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Dr. Mike. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming in this evening.
Thank you.
Moving on
Good
to
night.
probation. John, page 85 and 86. Okay. Starting with alternatives to incarceration. Any questions? We certainly have nothing there. So moving on to general budget here.
Well, just to start with those first lines, used to be in a separate budget category. We absorbed it into the regular Putnam County Probation Department budget. So you'll see it as a project on page 87.
Okay. Overtime has increased by $5,000 or by $10,000. Can you?
Yes, so the reason that we increased our overtime is that we have come up against using it the last couple of years. And that's probably because of increased salaries for people, so when they do overtime, it costs us a little bit more money. But we're doing overtime for things like home contacts and for warrants and for field work for the probation department. There's also a piece of that that's covered by the grant. $25,000 of it is covered by a pretrial services grant, and that's going to be used for probation officers going to local courts to cover arraignments. And it's all covered by the grant.
Page 86. Then we have the vehicle lease. How many cars do you have leased?
We have 2 cars currently.
2 cars. Okay. Contracts?
Contracts.
5646?
Yes, that went up because we had to hire a translator for a very special language that we could not find anywhere else. We have a translation service that we use over the phone. They couldn't provide the service. We couldn't get it anywhere else other than through the court, and it cost us some money for that. But the bulk of that and the remainder, about $8,800, is for treatment, and this is covered by, again, our pretrial services grant to pay for treatment for pretrial cases.
Okay. Any questions on page 86? Okay, moving on to page 87. You see the state aid. The information is included, the $12,811. Says a grant for. Any questions on page 87? Okay, moving on to page 88, that's it, okay, so no questions. We'll jump into stop DWI while you're there.
Great, thank you.
That's page 96 and 97.
So just
The grant?
for information, this is not taxpayer-funded money. These are fines that are imposed on DWI offenders that are collected and given back to the county to run stop DWI programs. We spend some of our money on the probation department for a DA or part of a DA, the sheriff's department, police agencies, that kind of thing, advertising.
Thank you. Any questions? Spare money, straightforward. Any legislators have any questions? Okay,
I
we
have a
no
question.
legislative comment.
How do you determine, like, how much you're gonna get in DWI? It's like, that's a big number too, it's kind of unfortunate.
It's very hard, and traditionally, we had budgeted for years $150,000, and we had a surplus.
Good.
And so we were able to always meet that budget. After COVID, we lost our surplus entirely, exhausted all of those funds, and so I've been budgeting much more conservatively. This year I upped it just slightly so that we could do a little bit more because we've come closer to our target, which would be $150,000, but frankly, the fine money just hasn't been there. So I want to stay conservative and make sure that we've got the money to fund the projects that we do.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for coming in.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Sheriff McConville.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We will begin on page 62, but before you begin, I would like you to share your good news that you received today.
Yes, we completed the 3-day assessment by the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services on accreditation. They came here for a term, went through all our policies, their documentations, their findings that they informed us of earlier today. They're recommending to the Accreditation Council that we be awarded accreditation, and that will take place in December of 2024.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will begin on page 62. Okay. And this is administration. Pretty straightforward as far as I can see. If anyone has any questions on the committee. Legislator Allen.
Line 54210, how many vehicles that are leased?
We are looking to secure 5 leases and 1 purchase, because 1 purchase is for a K-9 vehicle that is outdated, and it's too expensive to utilize a lease for that and causes much damage.
Thank you.
Legislator, did you have a question?
No,
Oh, okay.
no.
Okay. Any questions continuing administration on page 83? No questions?
63.
Excuse me?
What page are you on? 63.
63. Okay, there being no questions, moving on to 64, which is operations, correct?
Correct.
I see that we have some money coming in the amount of $36,000, but it's deemed unclassified. Can you embellish?
Yes, under the federal grant for the crisis intervention training, we'll receive $37,610. That's an adjustment that Commissioner Lewis made earlier today. It's the federal grants for co-responder and crisis intervention, and we do obtain some of that money from the mental health DSS department.
And the overtime 51093 has bumped up a little bit, like $8,900.
Yes, and that's due to the collective bargaining agreement we have with the PBA.
Also
So that's,
driving
that
up.
over, any overtime increases are reflective of that agreement.
Okay. Okay, motor vehicles, I see that you requested $72,498, and that was not inserted into the tentative budget. Can you tell us why you requested that, please, and what it's for?
Yeah, no,
52650.
Yeah, we requested two new quad vehicles, ATVs, in layman's terms. One that we have is rather old and is not capable of being utilized. The second one, we're holding that together with Band-Aids and duct tape, and has seen its life term just about wear out. So we requested the money to have one two-seater and one four-seater so that we could transport equipment and material to a scene or to an incident if necessary. It was not approved by administration, and in a conversation I had with both the county exec and the deputy county exec, they were reviewing opportunities for us to obtain a different ATV at some point in the next few months, hopefully.
Well, I would think that these are essential.
Yes, we utilize them for missing persons, lost persons, transporting, again, equipment into wooded areas through difficult and treacherous terrain. We also use them to bring equipment in, as well as we use it for both quads, ATVs, we utilize to conduct certain details on the bike path regarding homeless individuals and persons in need of mental health or DSS treatments.
So you do partner with DSS and if need be,
yes,
to
we go
there's
out
a lost
4
child
times a
in
year.
the woods or somebody stuck on the mountain, or
yes.
not a mountain, but in the woods and
yes.
on the trail.
We've also started to use them more frequently to sweep the bike paths. We can't do it on a bike. We're getting complaints from the municipalities along the bike path that people are there late in the evening and accosting people, sleeping and being intoxicated on. So we're trying to sweep outside of areas, timelines that we normally use the bikes.
Well, yes.
I'm just as an aside, I was on the bike path actually probably about a month ago when I contacted the sheriff letting him know that there was a teenager on the bike path with an ATV. I don't know how law enforcement will be able to get somebody on the bike path without an ATV.
Right, it presents a difficulty for us if we don't have operational ATVs.
Legislative, probably.
This is for UTVs or UTVs, right?
Yes.
How many do we have now, currently, that work?
That operational, one.
One operational, so that you would be adding 2 more.
We're looking to replace the 2 that are on this side of the county.
Okay, thank you.
No, I'm wondering how you would get by if they weren't replaced. Like what would, in the coming year, what would happen?
Foot patrol.
So they're definitely, it's not.
We would have to send a contingent
of
personnel in to do quadrant search, which would delay, potentially could be delayed through amassing personnel in order to map out a quadrant or quadrants in order to search. We can't get regular vehicles in there. We can't get bicycles, as Captain Shepperly referred to, off the normalized path, which is blacktop protected. We're trying to meet a number of different objectives and goals here by going deeper into the woods on the homeless situation, because we have gotten a number of complaints that there are individuals living deep into the woods, and we have found some structures. I think Legislator Castellano has sent us 1 or 2 letters requesting added inspections of certain areas based upon complaints he's received from his constituents, and we've been successful going in, but it's been arduous, and during the summer we're going in on hot days, and we're taxing our personnel.
So this is an essential request, I would say.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we also, this year, and every year, don't you guys spend quite a bit of funding to send deputies into training for this?
Yes, we do.
So,
we do train personnel so that we have a cadre that is current and capable and certified to operate the vehicles.
so if we're spending the money to train people, it would be essential to have the UTVs to use, correct?
Yes.
Any other questions? Legislator Bianchi?
Yes. Sheriff, were you given any reason by the administration as to why it was taken out?
No, Deputy County Exec Burpo told me that he believed he could make arrangements to get us a vehicle that would suffice. So
Outside of the budget?
Funded?
Yeah.
I'm here, I can see it.
Can you come to the podium, please?
Yeah. We're going across the county, Commissioner Tully and I, and looking at all of our surplus, all of the vehicles that the county owns. We have multiple departments that have the vehicles, so what we're looking to do is if we can utilize them to a better area and shift them, we are gonna move stuff around and stuff to keep the expenses down. I think we only said you get the one, we were gonna get the other one for you, I believe, right?
Right, we were gonna
Yeah.
purchase one.
Right, and we do, we have multiple vehicles, and, you know, what happens is sometimes, you know, departments get them and they think it's theirs only, and it's the county property. And if they could be utilized across the county, and that's the whole purpose of us utilizing like asset management and things like that, where we have these items, we have these vehicles, not just vehicles, it could be any type of equipment across the county. Why go out and purchase new if we have those vehicles that could be utilized? They may be underutilized in a department, or, you know, we have a system where if the sheriff needed them for 5 months, 6 months, whatever, we go through and then we can evaluate it and see if it, you know, meets their needs, but not just in that department, in any department.
I'm in agreement with that way of thinking. In town of Carmel, whenever the police cars were at their limit for service within the police, the cars were handed down to the departments. So there's always, the cars would flow through. Here we have 0 for the sheriff. At very least, I'd like to give him one and
Yeah,
have you work
I
on
honestly
it.
thought we had one, there was one in there and we were gonna help get them the second one to utilize, and that would have given them the 2.
Then I think it would be appropriate to.
I do too, but I understand that process for vehicles, but what other departments would have extra ATVs lying around that we could?
Well, you have the Parks Department, you have BES, you know, Emergency Services, you have, you know, DPW,
They
you
are-
have
they-
departments that have.
But they are not gonna be utilizing their equipment, so it will be available to transfer to the sheriff's department, is what you're saying?
I'm saying we have departments that have extra equipment.
Well, this is specific equipment, not extra.
Yes.
Are they maintained, I'm sorry, are they maintained so that, I mean, if the sheriff's department needs something and BES happens to have a unit that's been sitting for 6 months and then they can't start it that day, I mean, that's gonna be a problem, I mean.
No,
everything's
they're
gonna- Okay, thank you.
Legislator Montgomery. Oh, Legislator Elmer, I'm sorry, he was waiting, please, I'm sorry.
I was waiting for a
No,
quite a long
he
time.
raised his hand, I told him to
3 times
put it
before,
down.
him and him
Sheriff,
and him. And
Okay,
people
Deputy,
said-
Legislator Elner.
Are these very specific ATVs? Because ATV or UTV can be a very broad range. Would these have special lighting? Would they have any type of special connections? So it's just not a run-of-the-mill. What I'm trying to ascertain is I think it's great if we can utilize something that we have, but if what we have doesn't fit the specific law enforcement application, then it kind of changes my view.
The short answer is yes. They are specific, they are special in terms of what we can transport in, the durability, the weight that they can hold, and the number of personnel that they can transport safely into an incident along with their equipment. And they have lighting packages on them, and the capability of traversing difficult terrain, rocky, wooded, watery terrain.
So Sheriff, the ATV in the Parks Department, would that be conducive with an ATV that you need for your needs?
I've never seen the ATV in the Parks Department, so I can't compare.
Legislator Montgomery?
So I have to start from the beginning. What is the make and model of the ATV that you would need? And the second question, is it comparable to what our fire departments use throughout the county?
The make and model is the Polaris, the 2024 Polaris Ranger Crew XP 1000 North Star Edition Trail Boss. I'm not familiar with every fire department. My recollection is that the Brewster Fire Department has a Polaris that is similar to this. Obviously different needs because they carry different equipment and a different pathway that they would utilize to get to an incident or a scene, but a lot of similarities. So they're pretty much all the same or similar.
Would you say that the one of them at BES would work for you?
Yes, the four-seater would work for us.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I said parks and everything, I was referring to, we have them in multiple areas, not that you would pull the one from parks, you would pull the piece of equipment that would best fit the department in need. Well, I was just trying to make a point that we do have equipment throughout the county, and we should utilize it as much as possible.
I agree. I'm not disagreeing with that philosophy. I'm just asking whether or not, with PES then no longer needs theirs, and they're going to transfer it to the Sheriff's Department, and so there's a trickle-down effect going on here. Is that the case? They exhausted their needs, that's one thing, but if they need it, that's another.
The programs on how to start sharing that stuff.
We understand, thank you. Legislator Montgomery?
I don't understand I understand the nature of the calls. I don't know why you would be taking a different route than, say, a fire department would, but I think because of the nature of the calls that you described, most of the time we have our local fire departments, as you saw last week, responding to those calls as well. And each and every fire department has one of these vehicles across the county, sometimes two. So I like the idea of considering shared services in these instances. We have 4 fire departments in Phillipstown, and they're always coming to the town and asking for equipment, and I always like to look at what each department had and how they could share them, because the fact of the matter is they're all responding to the same calls via mutual aid.
Well, we weren't called to that call because we have no vehicle that can respond to it.
So, was it necessary for you to go to that call?
It could have been. Okay.
So three ATVs showing up for
it can be, yes.
Yeah. Well, we don't know the nature of the emergency, so we can't just cast a wide net and say 3 or 2 or 1.
If I may, Legislator Montgomery, if there's a suspect that we're looking for and he's possibly armed, we're not sending fire department personnel into that scene.
No, I understand.
And they're going to want to operate their own equipment, and we've run into that, and that presents a problem because then we have to.
We're just trying to save the taxpayers' money here. We've got a lot of equipment through every emergency service department.
I'd like to call on Commissioner Lipton. Can you tell us about the availability of a possible ATV that you may have in your department? Is there one that you are ready to release?
The 2 ATVs that we have are made for rescue. They are outfitted with lights and radios for fire service. They are lettered fire department rescue.
Can you come to the podium, please?
Sure. The 2 ATVs that we have belong to the technical rescue team. They're outfitted and they're specifically made for mountain rescue. We put on their special tires to be able to go off-road and on rough terrain. They are outfitted with lights and sirens, radios. They have all the equipment that's needed for that.
Do you have excess that you are willing to release?
They're there, but you know, if we were to lease them to the sheriff's department, could be a possibility. But the fact of the matter is the team gets out, gets a call,
Yeah.
and they don't have their equipment.
So that could be an issue.
That could be an issue. They are available for use and could be used, but.
Any equipment that they would be equipped differently.
Yeah.
But we understand they can be used, but the use of these vehicles for both the Bureau and the Sheriff's Department are under emergency conditions when time is of the essence.
Correct.
So, you know, to say that they're there and they could be applied is very different than having your needs met and your needs met. And if it was at the same time, then there would be an issue. Is that not correct?
Yes, most definitely.
Okay, thank you.
You take from Peter to pay Paul.
Legislator Yonke.
Yep.
Right.
Just a question, Commissioner Lipton.
Yes, sir.
In the last 12 months, how many times has the team been called out?
This year, I don't have that right off the top of my head, but I'd say at least a dozen times.
Can you give us a report on that?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. They were just out most recently during the testing of the radio project. They were out for a couple of days doing all the mountainous terrain for the radio project. So they get quite a bit of use.
So if you had one instead of two, would that impede your operations?
The two ATVs are specifically made for two different situations. One ATV, which is a two-seater, is meant just to get people and equipment up the mountain. The four-seater is made for transferring people. When we get up there and you need to rescue somebody and we need to put them into a situation where they need either air conditioning or they need heat, we have something, an environment that we can put them into and then transport victims down off of the mountain. So the two of them are spec'd out for two different
uses. I understand. Okay.
They're specific for what we spec them out for.
This is, I guess, to you too. With the new team that's forming through your department, are they going to be using them and training on them as well? More so than they've been used in the past?
That's a good question. Not quite sure. I would say yes, that they would be, you know, able to use those too, because in that kind of situation, I think technical rescue would probably be called alongside them too.
So there's a situation where there would be dual use.
Exactly. Legislator Castellano.
I know the sheriff mentioned before, I certainly had contacted the sheriff's office multiple times. I think Legislator Yonke did as well. In the town of Southeast, we have a situation where the bike path is sort of isolated from the rest of the bike path because that bridge is not complete yet. Hopefully by next summer, this bridge will be complete and it'll make it easier for people to get back and forth. But in that area is the area that we've been having problems with, and the town of Southeast keeps contacting us saying, can you run the sheriff's department in there? And I think the sheriff's department is the one that needs to be there almost at a moment's notice because of what's going on. So I certainly would like to see the sheriff have a unique vehicle for themselves so they can respond as quickly as possible.
I agree.
And if I could just, as somebody that I've got the bike patrol on the bike path, traditionally we went out in late morning and to early afternoon, just like, now we're trying to get out in the mornings and evenings to clear that path and see what is there before people come out and start using it, because we are having situations, as you're aware, where they've been accosted or they're being solicited for money and the rest. So we had not traditionally looked to kind of almost do a daily patrol, but that's kind of what we're trying to move into.
Well, I believe that these are essential to the operations of the sheriff's department. And it's something that you don't want to realize after the fact. So I would like to make a motion to approve the $72,498 for the vehicles.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Moving down to page 65.
I have some questions still on page 64.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
In 2024, we allocated $65,000 for audiovisual equipment and another $3,000 on a different.
Can you just cite the code number, please?
Sure. It is 52640 and also 52140. Where in 2024 on that line we allocated $10,252.57. The other line was $65,000. This year we're allocating $48,303 and $4,768. I would assume the audio-visual equipment that we're buying at $65,000 lasts quite a long time. Are we buying new equipment?
Those are license plate readers.
Okay.
And the associated costs relative to licensing, installation, etc.
Can we get that changed in the line item? Because it just appears like we're buying TVs and things like that.
That's fine with me.
Is that something?
I'm okay with it.
That would be good to know in the budget. And
what line would you like it in?
Well, why are there two lines? Why are there two audiovisual equipment lines?
One is equipment over 5,000.
One is under and one is over 5,000.
It's the over and under.
Okay. So those are all LPRs?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
So we're gonna leave them in that line, or do you still want to move them? Are you capable of moving them?
I don't mean moving them. I mean, in the future, can we tell what it is? We have a budget always that doesn't.
Just a different description.
Yeah.
Different description, it's misleading.
Let's just say what they are.
Okay, thank you. Legislator Elmer.
Line 54636, internet cost, it's pretty much the same, but it's $92,800.
It's relative to all the Comcast or Optimum costs to feed us internet for our buildings, our personnel, and the MDTs in the vehicles, as well as the LPRs.
So this is mobile internet as well as what's in the structures?
Yes.
Because I've been asking everyone, the county gets charged a huge amount, and hopefully we can find a way going forward to reduce what we're paying across all the departments.
Legislator
Thank
Elmer's
you.
hot on the internet costs.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree with you, because we have to write the check.
Legislator Crowley.
With the LPRs, aren't a lot of them grant funded too? So like, would that reflect in this?
It's reflected in it, but some of them are not grant funded. The grant funded ones, we were only able to get a minuscule amount on that. But they don't cover the additional expenses.
And
repairs, maintenance, and internet costs, and licensing, and so forth.
And are they separate from the ones, are we talking about the ones that are going up in the county or the ones in the cars?
They're combined.
They're combined, okay.
Legislator Montgomery, page 64.
This is still 64, yes. Line 54640, no, I'm sorry. 54640, education and training. Couple questions. Is that enough? I know you're doing a lot of work with social services and training. Is that in a different line? Do you guys budget for that? It's $10,000 for education and training.
Yes, 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 that covers us, yeah.
And there's other lines throughout the budget?
That we can utilize should it become necessary. There are training lines that can be utilized for the co-response, although that's funded grant, but any crisis intervention, we only need to have 5 more deputies trained, 4 or 5 more, and we're at 100% of our personnel trained in CIT. We just did a large class.
And they're scheduled.
Right.
That's
So,
great, thank you.
Okay, everybody comfortable with page 64? Okay, our microphones are not working, so if you can't hear me, please let me know.
Tom Lannon, you're back there, can you help us?
He can't hear you.
I do tend to speak softly. So,
No, you're not doing that.
okay, moving on to page 65. We're wrapping up operations, and we have the crisis intervention teams grant. Pretty self-explanatory.
I have a question on page 65. 54210, for leasing also, vehicle leasing. You requested 18,000.
What number is that, please?
It is 54210. Right here, toward the bottom of the page.
Yeah, that's the vehicle we utilize for the co-response
that's in
team.
the grant.
That's grant paid.
Okay. Thank
It
you.
just took me a minute to find the
Okay,
numbers.
that's fine. Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, any other questions about that, about the crisis intervention grant? Okay, I think Mike or Michelle would have to help me out with the next one, the Homeland Security Threat Assessment. Do we have to amend those numbers? Is that the numbers you, Mike?
If I could, if you go back to the crisis intervention teams grant.
Is that the numbers
That's on
from
page
44,500?
Correct.
To
That needs to
amend that
be-
to $37,610?
Correct, because it's 100%.
Okay.
To equal the
So
revenue
I-
expense.
Can you explain what happened there, just for clarification?
Well, it's 100%, so the revenues have to equal the expenses.
Okay.
It's just a bookkeeping entry.
Okay.
It probably changed because of, when we did the budget, we didn't know the premiums and all that other stuff, so.
Okay, so I make a motion to amend that budget line?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the Homeland Security grant from 85,845 amend to
104,215.
104,415.
Yep, that's, again, another 100% grant to cover the overtime and the operational.
Motion to amend that accordingly? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Moving on to page 66. Any questions or comments? We begin with communications, and then we begin with narcotics. Any questions?
Are we just on 66?
If you have any questions on 66, we'll start there. And we'll continue down to page 67, which is the same. On page 67, books and supplements have been increased $3,000. 54313.
It's all the law books for the narcotics enforcement team and BCI to upgrade, to make sure they're current with any amendments and revisions and changes in the penal law or CPL.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on legislator Montgomery?
I don't know why that wouldn't be in narcotics, but that's not the original question I had. The books are for narcotics, but they're not in the narcotics budget. Oh, that's
Yeah,
this,
they are.
okay.
They are.
Okay.
You
Okay.
gotta just look at the.
Yeah.
Thank you. Again, 54640. Education and training, same $10,000. Is that?
That's sufficient, yes.
Okay.
That covers specific training for that unit and its personnel.
Okay. And there's one chargeback last time, but never mind. I got it. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on page 66 or 67? The budget here. Moving on to page 68. To civil. Any questions on page 68? 69.
I have a question on 69. Sorry.
Okay. Go ahead.
The SPO contracts.
We didn't get there yet. Yeah.
You just said 69.
Well,
Okay.
we're doing civil. It's compartmentalized here.
Okay.
Okay, no questions?
If I may,
Yes.
the civil line for the temporary line, we asked for 24,000, for some reason it was reduced down to 22,140. That shortens her time by about 3 weeks.
So that you don't believe that that's sufficient?
No, if it can be put
Okay.
to the 24, that would be much appreciated.
Okay, then I will make a motion to increase it to 24,000.
Second.
All in
Can we have
favor?
a discussion?
Aye.
Can we have a discussion before you vote on it?
No, I think it's-
On
go ahead.
the way it works. Was there a reason given for decreasing it to 22,104?
Not that I'm aware.
No, I don't know why it was reduced to 22,140.
We have the deputy county executive here, and the comptroller.
I'm not sure why that, he was calling on the temporary,
The only thing I can think of,
went down 1,000 something.
the only thing I can think of off the top of my head, I don't have my notes with me, but the 2024 budget was 21,600. The 2023 actuals was 21,125, and year-to-date is 17,250, so it could just be historical trends, and that's why it went down slightly.
But it's going to go up based on the prevailing wages going up and everything else going up, which is a driving factor throughout the budget. So we just made the motion and passed it, but regardless of that, I would certainly respect that this is a crucial expenditure, and especially if it's going to be 3 weeks. That would be insufficient to pay for the overtime becomes crucial, so.
Straight time, no overtime.
Oh, it's straight time?
Right.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
part-time.
Okay, well, motion's been made and unanimously approved, so we'll move. Any other questions? It's civil. Okay. Bottom of page 69 is SPO contracts. Nancy, call on you first. You had a question?
So the actual in 2024 right now is 320,845. We haven't billed out for, they haven't, this is all the school's contribution to the sheriff's department.
Yes.
And it's gone up based on salaries and.
Salary increase last year.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
No other questions? Move on to page 70. The rescue contracts for the towns at the top portion of the page. Middle of the page begins community and youth. So my question is for 51093, the overtime jumped a bit. What would dictate that increase?
Training.
Training?
Training. We afford the SPOs additional training to keep them in their peace officer status and compliant with our policies and rules and procedures.
Okay. Any questions on community and youth, which is 60, 70, and 71? There being none, just the bottom of page 71 is Sheriff Patrol weight enforcement. Pretty straightforward. Moving on to page 72. Jury Patrol for Lake Ascawana. And I see motor vehicles is a new expenditure for $75,000, 52650.
That's correct.
Is that a boat?
That's a vessel, yes. We don't have vessel in the budget, so it's a motor vehicle.
It's not a submarine.
At that price,
the old one's about to be.
And that's 50% of that is reimbursable from the New York State Office of Parks and Recreation. So it's really 37.5.
Well, that's good to know too. Okay. And we move on to legislative.
Through the chair, bottom of page 73, 52180. Could you just give us a little bit of a more detailed description of what is other equipment?
Sure. That would be the equipment to operate the vehicle. We would need vests, ropes, paddles.
Okay, because you're
Well, that's road patrol, correct? We're moving on. That was the road patrol.
Because your request has gone down by $20,000.
Right.
But that's not for boats, that's for something.
Okay. So beginning on page 73, the 412941 is road patrol. It's incoming money that is quoted unclassified. Can you tell me what that is? On 527701. Mike?
For bicycle?
No.
Am I on the wrong page? I'm on 72?
73.
73.
I believe that's
You know, this category is not identified.
427701. Did I say 5? 42, I'm sorry, I stand corrected. 427701, unclassified, $7,000.
So I believe that is the sale of our accident reports on, what's the program?
Crash.com.
On Crash.com, we sell accident reports and we get some money back, so that's a projection.
Okay.
since we transitioned to that process for people to get accident reports, that's money that comes back to the county, right?
So this is road patrol.
Yes.
So we're looking at road patrol,
Correct.
yes. Okay.
So, oh, doesn't identify it.
It's marked on the it's marked on the next page, that's why I had turned to the road next page. Well, it's marked as a black.
It's not marked.
Really not marked.
No, this one's not
Okay. This one's not marked. Okay.
So this, so can I just clarify, the top of 273 and
No, the
I'm
top
sorry.
of page, the
top of,
Nancy, under bicycle, we
I-
begin with.
I'd like to go by page number.
Yeah, okay, page 73. We end with patrol bicycle, and then we go on to 412941 begins road patrol.
Thank you.
Okay, so we discussed the unclassified revenue coming in. So the overtime has increased by approximately $60,000 this year.
Yes, that's reflective of the collective bargaining agreement.
Correct,
Okay.
only.
Okay. And furniture and furnishings, $4,500.
So that is, we had been doing our evidence processing in the evidence room and entering from the outside directly. But as, during our process of accreditation, they needed to recapture that space, so we no longer can process. We now need to get a special bench to handle stuff and process our evidence in the squad room now, and then cart it back into, when it goes into the evidence room. So the patrols and the investigators are gonna have to utilize something we create. So we need a particular bench that'll allow them to process their narcotics or whatever they're doing, package it up, and then when our crime scene unit comes in, they'll take it into the lab, into the property room.
So you have to
So we were
retrofit the
evicted.
room, basically, right?
No, it's a bench that has to be put together with specifics based on the accreditation standards.
Oh, I see.
To be
Okay.
utilized to package the evidence and to keep it pristine.
Okay. Legislator Elmer.
Page 74, line
No, we're
5.
still on 73.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
I thought we finished.
Other equipment. 52180.
Yes.
$45,228.
Those are replacement ballistic vests for 10 patrol deputies. And then replacement stop stick pursuit intervention devices, some emergency lighting, privacy screens, pedestrian barrels, and replacement carbine racks. Depending on how you say it, carbine.
Okay, moving on to page 74. With no further questions, I call on Legislator Elmer.
Thank you, Chair Nestorino. 54560 equipment rental lease. Your request was for $102,000 and it was zeroed out, so obviously this has been moved. Just like to know where it was moved to.
54560.
Where did that go? The decision was it wasn't gonna stay in patrol anymore. Let me flip it through my notes.
Wait a minute, 54560,
Yes.
legislator? That's the Axon, part of the Axon package.
That's what it is.
The county is.
Correct, yep.
And that's in the back of the budget, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
It's, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It took me, I had to go through a couple pages and try to remember the numbers, so.
And that's
We
reflected.
consolidated the Axon contract, and now the payment is now going to be reflective in the debt service fund.
Okay. Okay. Okay, any other questions on page 74, road patrol? There being none, I'll move on to page 75. I think we have to make a correction that it's called the ERT callouts. I'd like to correct that to be the SRT callouts. Mike, if you could make that change so it's accurate. Any questions? Okay. There being none, I'll move on to page 76. Okay. So these are grants that have either sunsetted or have not yet been realized, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. We'll move on to page 77. We have a amendment to make with the traffic safety service line 10021.
Yes.
And we're
the traffic safety grant that we just got from the Governor's Traffic Safety Council? Yes. In the amount of almost $18,000.
Correct. I thought I had given Ms. Sharkey the number.
I have the numbers. I have it.
Oh, you do have it.
So we are, yes, we are, I would like to make an amendment to police traffic service line 1443893 to correct it from $12,144 to $12,760 as reflected by the correspondence we received with the award.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any other questions there?
You did the 12,768.
I did that. Yeah, 12,768. Okay, moving on to page 78. Any questions?
Oh, no, take my papers.
Yeah.
There were two lines on that grant. It was the 44893, which you.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, that was my oversight thing. That is 443-893 police traffic safety service, reflecting and same, 12,844 to 12,760 up, right?
On the 51093.
Yeah. Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to page 79. There's also another amendment for,
excuse me, Jim, there's also the second group, this.
Page 78.
what page?
On page 78, the other part of the grant was.
There's like two lines, this third and fourth
Right,
line.
so. One said, 443.
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
$4,400.
Yeah, that's
Oh, I have that. Oh, okay, so that's the buckle up.
Right.
To increase that to, okay, 1443899 buckle up to increase that to $4,400.
And then the 51093 as well.
What?
The budget line 51093, I think.
like go together, one's
Increase.
overtime and.
Increase both.
Right.
40, okay.
So they balance out.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to page 79. We have to amend the 510094 to reflect from $145,000 to $186,000. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any questions on 78 or 79? Page 80, so it's town court security, pretty straightforward, incoming money to offset. Okay. Page 81, beginning with code 415100 is DCI. On page 81. Any questions or comments? We'll move on to page 82. On page 82, 52180, other equipment has been increased by approximately $9,300. What is that for?
52180?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So those are for replacing some expiring body armor filters. And then also replacement filters for the forensics backing system in the lab throughout the year. They have to be done several times. And then heavy-duty cargo organizers for our 2 forensics vehicles. They carry expensive equipment, and the organizers would protect the equipment during travel in the vehicle.
Okay, thank
And
you.
then the other container could be used to transport and protect evidence.
Thank you. Any other questions on page 82?
Special services? Page
54682.
82, yeah, 54682. I don't know what that is.
Those are what we call cell phone tower dumps. It's mega data, and it's used for criminal investigations to see what cell phone towers have been pinged by a suspect phone.
Okay. Moving on to page 83, there being no further, oh, I'm sorry, Legislator.
Thank you, Chair. 54783, the licensing software.
54783, yes.
This is the new 3D.
Farrah? No, that we used a grant for.
Okay, this software is the...
This is for, specific to child pornography, examinations and investigations. Also for the replication and removal of hard drives in surveillance systems, where the system is removed for investigation, removal of data history from computers and phones, software that is utilized for cell phone passwords and information, allows for the converting files between formats for viewing capability. Its gray key is one system, Celebrite is the other, because one's Androids, one's iPhones, and allows us to decode the phones, and then Rabbit Hole, which is a software that allows us to decode the data we get and locating artifacts that are newly discovered and cannot be decoded by current software.
Thank you.
Any other questions on page 82?
One
Okay.
second, please.
Yeah, hold on, 546. Yes, okay, yeah, we're fine with
We're good? Okay. Okay, moving on to page 83. We've got grant money coming in for each of the respective FBI Task Force, Women's Resource Center, Homeland Security, and Investigation, and license plate readers. They're all offset by grants. Any questions or comments? Legislator Montgomery.
The Women's Resource Center, I guess so that's the grant that we get, $29,176.
That's correct.
Who does that come from?
Women's Resource Center.
No, but who? They give you that money?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Wow, okay, thank you.
It's utilized for special victims.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other
That
questions?
comes out of their budget?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to page 84. Let's see, titles here. Any questions? Okay, so now, if everyone's ready, we'll go on to the jail.
Absolutely.
Page 89.
As long as you don't send me there. For extended visits.
Page 89, we'll start with the jail medical. Medical services, any questions? Bottom of the page is jail transport services. Any questions? None? Okay. No. Okay, moving on to page 90. Food services.
Food services, yes.
10, 20 grand.
Any questions on food services? Okay, there being none, moving on to jail building maintenance on page 91. Appears to be level funded. Any questions? Absolutely.
On page 91, there's a line for audiovisual, 52640. I'm just wondering what that is. It was zeroed out last year, it was budgeted at 205,000, I'm sure it's zeroed out, I'm just wondering what that is.
I'd have to look that one back up and get back to you on that one.
Maybe it's moved someplace.
Maybe unless
Well, that was a That was a resolution. They used their TCOM
Oh,
money.
the TCOM, yeah.
And it was 205,000.
Oh, right, okay.
That's on the one.
Right.
Okay. Page 91, no further questions. We'll move on to page 92. Oh, I'm sorry, what's your?
Thank you. 52130 computer equipment went up to 14,950.
That's correct. That's for the purchase for the administrative staff in correctional facility for laptops.
Any other questions on 92 or 93? Legislator Gilman.
Thank you. Prisoner
Page.
board.
Excuse me, Legislator Gilman, can you
I'm
reference the
sorry.
page?
Page 92. Prisoner board, 10,000. Where are they coming from?
Where are they coming from?
I know the marshals are sending 800,000, but where the 10,000?
That reflects Dutchess or Orange or an adjoining county that wants to house an inmate away from their general population or special housing for a variety of reasons. So they contract with us to board the individual in.
They don't want them in that general population that are dangerous?
No, we have, we place restrictions and conditions on which we'll take a board in. Think of it in terms of more protective. The individual may
Be vulnerable to.
I'm trying to, yeah,
Thank you.
Sometimes they don't want to mix suspects in a crime and gang-related or something.
Thank you.
Okay. There being no further questions, 94 and 95. We have the scrap grant, incoming money.
yes.
So, 94, 95, any questions?
That just went down.
There being no further questions, thank you for coming out this evening.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to Bureau of Emergency Services. Page 99. Good evening, Commissioner Lipton and Deputy Commissioner Calhoun. Nice to see you.
So this is the good part of the night, you know where the left goes.
I know, it is the good part. Okay, so we'll begin with Indian Point. I guess they still call it Indian Point?
They still do.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions or comments regarding Indian Point?
I have a question.
Okay.
How much longer is this funding gonna happen? I mean, when is the cutoff for all this?
Good question. Funding, we are still in the funding stream, even though it's reduced. The plan continues to reduce each year. This year, because it depends on the marks that Holdtech hits. There are certain goals that Holdtech has to hit as they reduce the plant and eliminate the buildings and get to certain points. The one goal that they hit this year is they were able to get all of the nuclear spent fuel into casks. which meant that they reduced the emergency response window, which was a 10-mile window, is now down to a 5-mile window. So Putnam County is no longer in the response zone. But because of the way the law is written, we still get a share of the money. And that's going to continue until Holtec finally does reduce everything to a 0, which is going to take a couple more years.
Are we still required to respond,
No.
even though we're outside the window?
No,
But
we
we're still
are
getting the money?
outside of the emergency response zone now. It's been reduced to a 5-mile area, and we are outside of that. That's part of the reason why some of our funding went down this year. But it'll go down a little bit, some more next year, and it'll further reduce the year after as they wind up the site.
Okay. Any other questions regarding the point? Okay, moving on to page 100. Bureau operations. 54370 automotive. $12,000.
That's for, we use a lot of that money for upfitting for all of the different vehicles.
Okay.
And also we use it for repair of the vehicles. The lighting part of the vehicles, the lighting, the sirens. So when we get a new vehicle, for example, it has to be outfitted with radios, it has to be outfitted with lights, it has to be outfitted with sirens, and that's where that money comes from.
Retrofit all the vehicles. 54510, machine maintenance, she requested 15,000. The allocation is for 10,000. Does that suffice?
Yes, because we use some of that money for repair of a lot of the different things that we have, and general services is taking over a lot of that from us, so that's not a problem.
Okay, very good. Any other questions on page 100? 101?
Gentlemen.
Bill, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Uniforms, a 32% increase, what are we using that for?
Yes, the uniforms, what it is, we use this budget line to replace all of the different turnout gears and the uniforms for all the different teams. Hazmat team, fire investigation team. One, cost of turnout gear has gone skyrocketing on us. And also now we have the addition of the RTF, and we have to start outfitting them.
The addition is the increase.
Yep.
Plus, many of our equipment now has shelf life.
Yes.
Not usable life, just a shelf life that we have no control over. So if it reaches that expiration date, we have no choice.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions on page 100?
No tax write-off for the donation.
Try.
Okay, moving on to page 101. Any questions?
Expenses way up.
Moving on to page 102, 103. Now again, are these grants that have sunsetted, or are these grants that are not yet realized, so it's not reflected in this budget?
No, we stay up to date with the SHIP grant. We'll be getting, the state is late with SHIP this year.
Okay.
They're also very late with SIG this year, but we are in for all of those grants
Okay.
again.
So we can't reflect the number because we don't know it yet.
Yeah, SHIP and SIG are very late this year. A matter of fact, they asked for some additional information now. So the grant that normally, it came out in April, we applied in June, They just came back a week ago, asked for additional information. So now I have to submit additional information. We're probably not going to see that money until January.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's his budget.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we'll reflect that revenue in January. Okay, 103, 104, dispatch, on page 104. Any questions? Legislator Bowman.
Thank you, gentlemen. Furniture and furnishings, we have a new location, or are we just redoing some of the furnishing?
No, this is the ongoing of the consoles. We've spread this out over quite a few years.
They're considered furniture.
Yeah, the 911 dispatching consoles. We did a third of them like 4 or 5 years ago, right before COVID, I think. And then we did another third, and this is going to be the final third of the replacement of the consoles, an upgrade of the consoles.
Why do we have another line, 52610, furniture and furnishings for $80,000?
Oh, that's what I was just talking about, the $80,000.
I thought he was talking about I'm sorry, I thought he was talking about the furniture and furnishings. That's the $5,000.
The $5,000 is every year we swap out. The dispatchers have to have what they call a 24/7 chair, and they're very expensive. And we own 9 of those chairs, so we do about 2. If we're lucky, we can get 3 chairs per year.
So we can't commingle these lines because it's under $5,000, correct?
Right,
Okay.
that's the under 5,000, the over 5,000.
Very good, very good. Okay, thank you. Okay, medical services, beginning on the bottom of page 105, 412650. And continuing on to page 106. Software accessories 54782. You requested $2,500. It is zeroed out.
Yeah, they moved it into that line licensing.
Okay. So it's under licensing software instead.
Yeah, it's a different software that we use for the different functions.
Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you. The new regulations for ambulance calls and fire department came out 6 months ago. Is that going to affect this budget moving forward, or?
You're talking about the OSHA regulations, is that what we're talking about? Yes. We actually did a slight increase because we're going to have much more instructors now that we have to. We're required to now have, for live burn, you have to have, you have to have a safety officer, you have to have, depending on how many students you have to have a live burn instructor for X amount of students, then you have to have a backup instructor for that, then you have to have a water source safety officer in place. So yeah, we're preparing for all of that, because we would always be on the safe side to start with and have enough personnel, but now they're really, it's, yeah.
Get a lot more.
Yeah, a lot more.
It's a very complex issue.
Yeah.
Legislator Montgomery.
Do those come out of the contract line here that's over $2,288,311?
That's the ALS contract line.
It's our 10th line in the Bureau.
Okay.
Our instructors get paid on the 10th line, so we increased that in the 10th line.
Yeah, that was to answer Bill's question.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. There being none, this concludes our meeting for this evening. Oh, Mr. Tully, did you have a question? Or a comment?
Excuse me, just real briefly, we've had some discussions over the last few days about the vehicle leasing line, and I just wanted to offer up a question. Would the legislature as a whole, would you welcome a proposal to consider during your budget and finance committee meeting that offers up another solution to how we present the vehicle leasing budget, more as a chargeback with the full funds in the Department of General Services? I'd be happy to write it up and submit it for you to review, but I know it was the subject of some confusion. I took your feedback seriously, and I think this might help offer a better solution going forward. So I just wanted to ask that question this evening, and be happy to send it to you to consider.
I would like to receive that. I think this process has been somewhat cumbersome and hard to define. As you know, we reiterated the same questions every night because we weren't quite clear on what was what. I think if we streamline that process a little bit, that would be great for the future, and I would request that you submit that to us for approval. I can't speak for everyone, but I think it's certainly something worth reviewing.
Considering, looking at.
Okay, very good. That was it. Didn't want to prolong it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming out this evening.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.